Get ready to meet one of the world's greatest poets today. So much poetry that we're forced to read in school can come across as opaque. We feel unequipped to analyze or even understand what it's saying. And this can be especially deadening when you're reading the quote, great poets, and getting nothing out of it. But poetry can be accessible without literature degrees. And by knowing how to appreciate poetry, you are tapping into a whole new art form, one that elevates our connection with the world and helps us see in new ways. I'm going to walk through one of America's greatest poets, Emily Dickinson. She's so confounding on first glance, but she's got so much creativity, and it doesn't take a lot to unlock an appreciation for her work. I'm going to give you a 3-point framework as we go over just one of her poems today, but you can use that framework to tap into a lot of other poetry as well. So the next time you page across a poem and it seems incomprehensible at first, you'll have the tools to crack that codex. Hi, I'm Nathan Harold. I like reading, I like meeting other people who read, and I'm excited to talk to you today about one of America's greatest poets. If you're not familiar with Emily Dickinson, she's a mid-19th century American poet. She lived up in Amherst, Massachusetts, where she spent her entire life. She lived with her family and lived upstairs writing her poems her whole life, so pretty good gig if you can get it. She wrote about 1,800 poems over the course of her life, but only published about 10. And those 10 were not published in glitzy literary magazines. Emily Dickinson did not chase fame, and fame did not find her during her lifetime. She's often cast as a recluse because isolation is such a prominent theme in her poetry. She also had a reputation for not going out too much during her life. But Emily definitely had deep relationships with others, and we know this because she had such extensive written correspondence with a small but intimate group of friends. To me, her poetry feels like an extension of that. After Emily Dickinson died, her sister went up into her room and found all of these poems handwritten, and her sister worked with editors to get them published. So in 1890, a collection of Emily Dickinson's poems first came out, and she immediately became extremely popular. Thereafter, she was adopted by modernists in the early 20th century as a seminal figure, and then each subsequent generation only furthered her critical reputation and cemented her status as an all-time great. As we go through the next few minutes, know that ambiguity is one of her hallmarks. What am I supposed to feel, and what's the point? The type of questions we often ask ourselves when we're reading poetry. Okay, so I'm going to go through one of her most famous poems called I'm Nobody, Who Are You? For now, just sit back and decide if this does anything for you upon the first read. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd banish us, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog, to tell your name the livelong June to an admiring bog. All right, framework tip number 1. Notice the creative word choice. Creative word choice leads to creative imagery, which leads to creative emotions. Note the nouns and the verbs you'll use, and the emotion you feel because of those choices. Look at the second stanza, where she's describing what it must be like to be somebody. How would you describe, if you were writing a poem, what it is to be, quote, somebody? Just take a second. How many of you would reach for, like a frog speaking to an admiring bog? None of us, and that's okay. We might come up with our own unique imagery, but that's the point. It is unique. It's surprising, it's comic, it's a little grotesque. Whoever this somebody is, she's being a little savage toward them. And it's also profound in expressing her point of view of what it is to be somebody. What do we admire about frogs? Not too much. If you want to go deeper, what do frogs do? They croak, they live in bogs, they're loudest in June, they are repetitive, and their admiring audience, a bog, is nothing to be impressed by. Second, good poetry provokes deeper questions. These are not the questions the poem asks. These are the questions you ask yourself after reading the poem. Emily Dickinson's poems often have these spurts of tension, and then they end. It can feel like it's over before we get to the final realization. There's not a, here, think this moment. So this is the ambiguity I was talking about, and it's central to Emily Dickinson, and it's central to a lot of poetry. It's just that Emily Dickinson does it better than a lot of other poets. I'm Nobody, Who Are You could be about public recognition. It could be about celebrity. A lot of evidence suggests it is about queer identity, but it could really be about any part of ourselves that we do not share with the world. How many times have you listened to a song and you really like it, but you also kind of wonder, what does this actually mean? It can resonate for the sound, of course, but it's also about the feeling it stirs within you and the emotion it conveys. That's Emily Dickinson. We get to the end and we can come up with our own conclusions. And the thing that makes her so great is that she provides enough fodder to support our own conclusions. The third point is a sense of intimacy that is conveyed in the poem. This poem is an exchange between two strangers in the shadows. We're overlooked, we're weird, but we're not alone now. A lot of art aims to achieve a similar objective by saying, here's my view of things, here's my interiority. Are we alike? Are we friends? In today's media environment where being nobody is the worst, Emily Dickinson is saying, no, actually if you're somebody, that's when you need to check yourself. And that's one of the reasons I like to think I'd be a good pen pal for Emily. What does it mean? Who cares? As much as you want it to mean. It's okay to write a poem that doesn't have a point. Sometimes it's okay to just evoke a feeling. That's the intimacy. And it's okay to have a feeling without trying to deconstruct and analyze everything on a technical level. If you want to get technical, Emily Dickinson can go there. Take a look at the structure. This poem is 2 stanzas. One is about being nobody, one is about being somebody, creating this reflection. You can also analyze the meter. Here she's using what's known as common meter. 4 stresses on one line, then 3 stresses on the next, then 4, then 3. Common meter is the same meter as many hymns, so there's another layer to peel back. You can also look at the rhyming within this poem. Which pair of words is pleasant sounding and which is ugly? And how does that tie to what she's saying? Also, see all the dashes she includes? I'm calling this out because a lot of editions of her poetry remove these, but if you see her originals, they're there and she uses them all the time. I like them. It's like I'm right there with her in the stream of conscious, and then because they're so halting, it adds to the tension and the realizations that burst forth. If I read a few lines without the pauses, the whole vibe of the poem changes. Editors also changed some of her word choices, so you might see some variance. In the current edition I'm reading from, I actually hand wrote some of the editorial corrections to reflect the original. All of this is going on in the background and it elevates her work. Today I just want to focus on making poetry accessible, but it's helpful to know that there are other layers. You can reread her poems and each time find something new to appreciate, and to me that is great literature in a microcosm. The more you read it, the more you understand it, and you appreciate it more. Emily Dickinson writes in a way that makes rereading very easy. So the next time you pick up a poem, just try this. First, what words shout out at you and jolt energy into the poem, and how are those making you feel? Second, after reading the poem once or twice, what deeper questions do you ask? And then third, do you feel a sense of connection with the speaker? Thank you for spending time with me today. If you're nobody too, then please let me know with a like or subscribe. I love connecting and I will keep making more of these. And if you're somebody, well, I hope you're well. Keep reading, keep exploring, keep growing, and I'll talk to you soon.